Hi everyone. Purim's around the corner. I'm very, very excited. If you've been following this, you'll know I'm a big Purim fan. And I've spent about 4 weeks conceptualizing Purim, and now it's only 3 days away, and I'm very, very, very excited. Um, and we've spent the last few weeks thinking about themes, or where Purim themes could take us in understanding reality or understanding different corners of our mind. I wanted to look today at the book of Esther itself in a different way, um, and touch on the difficulty of reading it in the 21st century, where we're in a world which Max Weber and other sociologists call a disenchanted world. We don't believe in magic. We don't believe almost in anything. We've come to a place where we don't feel the world as fantastic, and from that emptiness, we look for different things to fill up and give order to the world. And it might be capitalism, and it might be other things, but that makes it very difficult to read biblical texts. And it's difficult to read, I don't know, the Pesach story because of the fantastic miracles that we don't recognize as happening in our world, with blood and fire and smoke and seas splitting. And in a different way, and maybe even a more difficult way, it makes it difficult to read the book of Esther, where there's no obvious miracles, but there's a hint that something's just around the corner. There's something hidden in the book of Esther, and it would help us either to get into this mode of re-enchantment, of allowing ourselves to believe in the fantastic in order to read the Megillah, or the other way around, allowing the Megillah to push us into a place of seeing the world as fantastic. The highlight of the Megillah, for me, is Mordechai's speech. Mordechai only has 2 lines in the whole Megillah, but they happen to be the best lines ever. And this is coming at the end of the dramatic bit where we hear about Haman and his plot to kill all the Jews, and the king sends out messages to all the countries in the empire. On this day in Adar, you can kill all the Jews, and all the Jews are weeping and mourning, and so on, including Mordechai. And Esther tells him, cheer up, wear new clothes, and Mordechai refuses. And then he sends this message through a messenger. I'll read it in Hebrew and then English. אל תדמי בנפשך להימלט בית המלך מכל היהודים, כי אם החרש תחרישי בעת הזאת, רווח והצלה יעמוד ליהודים ממקום אחר, ואת ובית אביך תאבדו. ומי יודע אם לעת כזאת הגעת למלכות. Mordechai delivered this message. Do not imagine that you, of all Jews, will escape your life by being in the king's palace. On the contrary, if you keep silent in this crisis, relief and deliverance will come to the Jews from another place, while you and your father's house will perish. And who knows, perhaps you have come to the royal position for just such a crisis. And then Esther basically agrees, and she says, okay, I'm going to risk my life and approach the king, and maybe I'll perish and maybe not. And there's a lot going on in this story, even from the simple reading of it, right? The fact that Mordechai doesn't seem to be worried about the Jewish people. He's worried about Esther. He says, yes, salvation, deliverance. We'll get out of this mess somehow, right? It's all going to come from makom acher, from another place. But I'm worried about you, Esther. I'm worried about you living up to your responsibility. And what's that responsibility? It's a historic one, but Mordechai frames it as a question almost, or a possibility. Mi yodea, who knows? Maybe you have attained the royal position for just such a crisis. Who knows? And there's a lot to say about that for where we're at in our world. We looked in the shiur at different ways through history that this has been portrayed as archetypal, as having cosmic relevance, where the messengers are actually angels, right? That's in the Aramaic translation of Esther. The messenger is the prophet Daniel, and he's killed by Haman, and he's replaced by two angels, Michael and Gabriel, and it's them who bring the messages. And that makes the story much more magical, right? Also, the identification of Haman with Amalek, with the archetypal enemy of the Jewish people, because it says in the book of Esther that Mordechai told the messenger everything that had happened to them. And that word happened is also used to describe Amalek. He happened upon you along the way. And Amalek, this people who kind of comes to kill the Jews for no reason. They happen. That's a very Purim-y message of randomness, of a world which just happens, right? But it's not a philosophical concept of how can it be that the world is random. It's personified in this eternal enemy, Amalek, that pops up in every generation. And we looked at a place in the Talmud where they try and find the names of Haman and Esther and Mordechai in the Torah itself, not just in the later book of Esther. And it turns out that the name Esther is hinted at in the promise of God to seemingly disappear. God says, I will hide my face on some day in the future. I'll hide my face. Haster astir. And Talmud says, yes, that's Esther. Esther is the concealment of God's face. And what would it be like to read the book of Esther as a book of God's concealment? And then we have this sense that kind of there's divinity hinted at all through the book there. Maybe it's most apparent in those verses that we read. Makom acher, right? Salvation will come from Makom acher. And Makom happens to be a name of God. Ha-Makom. We know this from different contexts, but also from Shiva houses, where we say, Ha-Makom yenachem otchem. May God, may the place. God is called the place. May the place bring you comfort. And in the Midrash, they try and understand, why is God called the place? And it seems like it's because hu mekomo shel olam ve'en olamo mekomo. God is the place of the world, and the world is not God's place. And it's an amazing midrash, because it's telling us God's the place of place. God is to use the language of Heidegger, Yimach Shmo, there's a clearing in which being can happen. Right? God is the place of the world, and the world is not God's place. And that's what Mordechai is maybe hinting at, or we can read this text as Mordechai saying, yes, salvation will come from the place, from that place, from this kind of cosmic source of things happening for reason in the world, the cosmic source of meaning. And then he says, Mi odea. Maybe, who knows? Maybe there's a reason for what happens to you, for you becoming the queen. Mi odea. And it so happens that mi, who, is one of God's names. Okay, in Kabbalistic thought, two important names of God are ma and mi. What and who. And there's two levels of understanding God. This is the idea of Rav Menachem Foreman, Zichrono Livracha, who said that there's two fundamental attitudes of religious people. One is ma, one sees God as what, right? I believe that God exists, right? That's a what kind of God. I believe that God gave the Torah. That's a what fact. And we also have that with people, right? My friend is a lawyer, right? That's a what kind of relationship. My friend is rich or poor or cool. All that is what. But there's another kind of relationship to God and to the divine parts of anything in the world, which is me. Seeing the who-ness of the world. And I believe in God because that's who I believe in. My friend is my friend. That's the who of that person, is that they're my friend. And when Mordechai says, Mi yodea, who knows? It's through the question, through the giving up of what, of knowing things, and getting to the place of who, that you can really have an idea of God being in the world in the form of who knows that you came to this position. He's saying, God is there, first of all, in the who knows, in giving up the knowing, and God is there in seeing your situation in life as one directed by God, by the who kind of God. Anyway, that was lots and lots and lots of food for thought, basically. I encourage you to read the source sheet if you have time, and more importantly, come to a place of who knows on Purim, and not knowing on Purim, and have a magical, fantastic, enchanted Purim and the rest of life.